Good afternoon, everyone. 4 o'clock straight up on this Thursday edition of Middays with Q, live inside the friendly confines of the Trax 57 studios. And we are live back on our YouTube channel, Rich Q on Q. We just flushed out a half an hour of NBA talk. Where were you guys? Get involved in the conversation as well. You can tweet at me at Rich Q on Q. And of course, follow along on IG and on X, Facebook alike. A lot of NFL to get into today. If you just missed, again, the first half an hour, we were talking a lot of NBA. We were talking about why I believe the Golden State Warriors, and that's something I want to hear from you guys. The dynasty might be done as far as the NBA with some of these great teams that we have documented and highlighted and followed over the last several years. I also mentioned, too, early on in the show, why I thought that it was just time for the Philadelphia 76ers to rip the Band-Aid off and admit it is time for a rebuild. And I don't know if they're going to do that. And we will get into some NFL today as well. Appreciate everyone keeping us locked in. Don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. A lot of stuff to get into. I will say this. This is the first thing that I'm thinking of. This is the first thing that I'm thinking of right now when it comes to dynasties in sports. Like, we've seen it. We've seen these great runs. We've seen these teams win championship at a championship, back and forth. And I can say this. I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you at this moment, you look around and you say to yourself, that was a great run by the Golden State Warriors. But that run is done. And I believe the way the NBA is constructed, and the same thing in the NFL. It's the same exact thing in the NFL when you start to talk about, dynasties. It's very hard to win, and it's very hard to have sustained success. It really is. Because now with the CBA, with free agency, with these max contracts, a lot of people and a lot of GMs, a lot of organizations, a lot of franchises, sometimes they don't want to pay players. Sometimes they want to, see if they can squeeze a little blood out of a stone. I mean, think about this, right? If you win a championship, if you win a Super Bowl in the NFL, the next season, or if you're a pending free agent, what do you typically do? You turn around and you say to yourself, hey, I want to cash in. And I don't blame players for doing that. And it's one of the reasons that you don't get a lot of sustained success. I think it's more impressive what a team like Kansas City has been able to do. I think it's more impressive what teams like Golden State have been able to do, again, for years. The Yankees were able to do, Boston was able to do, the Dodgers doing. Now, those are big markets that spend in baseball. They're major markets that spend a substantial amount of money. In the NFL, it is a little different, right? Because what players are going to get paid. Well, now we're starting to see the running backs getting paid. But it's usually the quarterback, it's the edge rusher, it's the corner, the wide receiver, right? Those are the premium prime positions. The premium prime positions in the NFL. And I think when you really break it down and you say, look at the NBA, and you look at, again, a team like the Golden State Warriors, who had a great run, a monumental run. They ripped through the Western Conference for years. And they did it really with Steph and Clay and Green and role players. And here you go. And you had the great runs with the equal dollars alike. Okay, fine. But now, because it's a young man's game in the NBA, Western Conference, Eastern Conference, Western Conference is stacked. We're seeing OKC doing it right now, are we not? The run eventually ends. And you have to make a business decision. And for a team like the 76ers that I talked about in the first segment, hour number one, you gave Joel Embiid a max contract. You gave him that last September. He played 19 games this previous season. You have to just admit the harsh reality. 76ers need to admit that they're in the midst of a rebuild. They can sit there and tell you all they want about Maxey, great player, about George, not the same player, veteran player. That was a miss. Embiid getting older. But they're in the midst of a rebuild. And that's why I think to have the sustained success like some of these teams do in sports, it's really hard and it's very impressive. And that's why I thought last night you saw the end of a dynasty. Will the Golden State Warriors make the playoffs over the next year, 2 or 3? Yeah, maybe 7, 8 seed. But I don't foresee a run anymore. I don't foresee a run. It's so hard to do. Look at the NFL. So yesterday, throughout the course of the day, the NFL was leaking schedules left and right. And it's crazy because my Giants have an absolutely brutal schedule. But think about some of these quirks in the scheduling for some of these teams. I mean, you look at the Giants' first 7, 8 games, they're staring down the barrel of 0-7, 0-8. I mean, that's how bad it is. That's how bad it is. Then you look at a team like the defending Super Bowl champs, the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, did schedule makers help them out? Dallas, Kansas City, the Rams, Tampa, Denver, Minnesota. I mean, that's a tough, listen, you've got some tough games, right? 0 consecutive home games. I think 7 primetime games. The rematch against Kansas City is not primetime. Doesn't make sense. You got a game on Monday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but only one Sunday night football game all year. You're playing Washington in week 16 and 18. I mean, start to look at these win totals now, bleeding out when it comes to the NFL and these win totals. But if you're an Eagles fan, you got to like your shot. You got to like your chances with these games. I don't like the fact that they're going to play Washington late in the season. I don't think that makes any sense. But they're the odds-on favorite. I mean, look, I thought, if anything, you want those games to be early on. You want those games to really have meaning, early on, juice, buzz. But I understand why they're doing it. Because they believe, that Washington's going to be much better and they're going to give the Eagles a run for their money. So why not have them late in the season, perhaps with the division up for grabs? Perhaps. So the schedule kind of leaked out, and just it kind of a gloss over. Man, I'll tell you, some of these teams are going to have a hard time winning football games. Let's stick with the NFCs for a minute. Okay, Washington opens up their season against the Giants. Then they travel on the road to Green Bay. They have the Raiders at home. So they catch a break. They go on the road against the Falcons. That's a winnable game. They go on the road against the Chargers, a winnable game. If the Washington Commanders can get through the Packers in week 2, they could have a really nice start to the season. Beat the Giants, beat Green Bay, beat the Raiders, beat the Falcons, beat the Chargers, beat the Bears, beat the Cowboys. They can be looking at 5-2, 6-1 start before they have the Chiefs. So it's going to be imperative for Washington to get off the mat early. Then I mentioned the Giants. And the Giants have a brutal schedule. I mean, the expectation, their season is going to be over by October. You open up against Washington and Dallas back on the road. On the road. Then you get Kansas City. Then the Chargers. The Saints might be a winnable game. Eagles, Denver Eagles. That's another thing, scheduling quirk. You have the Eagles. The Giants and the Eagles will play each other, and we won't. But they're getting their games between them done before Halloween, which is so rare. Eagles and Giants usually, midway, early, or they close out the season, they bookend it because they always believe those are ratings, divisional games, NFC East division title on the line late in the season. We've seen it in the early 2000s, middle of the 2000s when the Giants were making runs. Not anymore. Then they have the 49ers. The Bears maybe is a winnable game. Green Bay, Detroit, the Patriots maybe winnable. I mean, I'm looking at the Giants schedule right now. I see 3 wins. I see 3 wins right now for the New York Football Giants, which is not the way you want to start, right? The Jackson Dart tenure. Nobody wants to go that route. So we got through the Eagles. We got through Washington, the Giants, and then for you Cowboys fans, let's go through Dallas' slate. Dallas opens up on the road, Thursday night kickoff against Philadelphia Eagles. They come home, they have the Giants. Then they go on the road against Chicago. Green Bay at home, the Jets and the Panthers, back-to-back road games, I think will be a little tricky. I think the Panthers are going to be a much improved team. Washington at home, on the road against Denver, Cardinals home. Then they got to go out west. They take on the Raiders, come back. And they have the Eagles, Kansas City, on the road against Detroit, at home against the Vikings, the Chargers, and then on the road against Washington and the Giants. They've got a stretch in October, late October, mid-November. If you're a Cowboys fan, if you don't do what you need to do, if the Dallas Cowboys are a 500 football team right around November, and they can't beat the Raiders, and they can't get a win against the Eagles, and maybe they squeeze out a win against the Vikings or the Lions, I don't think they're beating the Chiefs. And then they close out the season against the Chargers, the Commanders, and the Giants. I see 7-8 wins. Maybe even less. Maybe even less. I mean, think about the start to the season. If they stub their toe against the Eagles, that's one thing. You stub your toe against the Giants or the Bears, and now you're 1-3, 1-4. Everyone's going to start questioning Jones, the hire, new head coach, offense, Dak Prescott. I mean, they've got some games in here where I don't envy them. You know, the Raiders on the road, that's a tough trip. And then you come back to Dallas with the Eagles, who I think the Eagles will be rested. That's what, the 23rd? So the Eagles actually have Detroit at home before they have to travel. It's at Thanksgiving, right? Or that Black Friday. I have to double check. But point being, this is not a cakewalk of a schedule if you're a Dallas Cowboy fan. This is not a cakewalk of a schedule. I mean, I can give you the win totals, which I'll go over in a little bit, but this is not an easy schedule for the Dallas Cowboys. It's just not. Then you look at a team like, let's say, the Detroit Lions, and everyone kind of expects the Detroit Lions to make another deep run into the playoffs. And Washington just basically came out of nowhere and ransacked them last year. Detroit opens up the season on the road against Green Bay. Then you have a young Bears team. You got to go on the road against Baltimore, which is a very hostile environment, very tough to win in Baltimore. Then you get a little reprieve with a bad Browns team. Cincinnati should be much better. Kansas City, defending AFC champ. Tampa, Minnesota, Washington, the Eagles. They still have the Rams late in the season, the Steelers, the Vikes. That's NFC North. That streak of winning those titles might come to an end. It might come to an end. I don't know what to expect from Minnesota. I really don't. And Green Bay, I think, is going to be better. I know some people are not the biggest Love fan. I think he's very good. I think at times he's inconsistent. Are the Chicago Bears going to sneak up on anyone? Are they? The Chicago Bears drafted a tight end. They have a tight end. You got a young quarterback. You're looking for that jump, that progression. You got a running back you don't utilize. You got some weapons. But they also start the season against the Vikings, on the road against Detroit, the Cowboys and the Raiders, Washington, the Saints. I mean, if you're a Bears fan and I were to look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the first 6 games of the season, and if I told a Bears fan you were 2-4, 3-3, you would probably take it and run with it. You would probably take it and run with it. Because these games, especially when we get into these divisional games, these divisional matchups, they're so hard. They're so hard. Joe D. Summers Point chiming in. Q, I cannot believe the schedule that the Giants got. I'm not a Giants fan, but I actually feel bad for you. It's absurd. I haven't even gotten in the Jets schedule. The Giants schedule is absurd. I'm sorry. For a team that was so bad, look, you have to play your divisional games. You have to. And then obviously you play different divisions. But look at this stretch. This is for the Giant fan that is delusional, that thinks this team is going to win 9 games, 10 games. Here's a stretch. Ready? You need to like hold a loved one right now. They open the season against Washington. On the road against Dallas and Washington. There's 2 losses right there. Home against Kansas City. That's a loss. Home against the Chargers, a playoff team. That's a loss. On the road against the Saints. I mean, is that the first time we see Dart if Wilson struggles after 4 weeks? I don't know. Maybe that's a win. They're not beating the Eagles 2 times. They're not beating Denver. The 49ers are going to be healthy. They're not beating the 49ers. Do they beat the Bears on the road? Maybe. You're not beating Green Bay. You're not beating Detroit. Do you beat the Patriots on the road? Maybe Jackson Dart's starting by then. Rookie quarterback on the road. I don't give it to you. Washington? No. Minnesota? No. The Raiders out on the road? No. And then the Giants are going to win 2-3 games. That's a brutal schedule. A brutal schedule for a team that is really bad. I mean, I cannot on good faith, if we're talking about strength of schedule, how the hell in the world do you think this team, listen, I see projected win totals for the Giants. First of all, their win total SOS is the hardest. It's 9.1. Strength of schedule is 9.1. The easiest are the 49ers. The Ravens have the 5th toughest. Jacksonville has the 5th easiest. It's Giants, Cleveland, Lions, Vikings, Ravens. Those are the 5 hardest schedules, okay? Strength of schedule in NFL. Then the 49ers, the Patriots on a rebuild, Saints on a rebuild, Falcons on a rebuild, Jacksonville muddling. They're your 5 easiest for the win totals. There's absolutely no way I can tell you at this moment, this team is a 6-win team. I cannot, absolutely no. And if you went SOS by playoff rating, strength of schedule based on recent playoff success, and you've got criteria of made the playoffs last year, 2 playoff appearances the last 3 in 5 years, 3 playoff wins the last 3 in the 5 years. It's a weighted system. Detroit has the hardest at 4.5. The Eagles are 4.3. And the Giants are 4.1. There's no way this team's winning 4 or 5 games. It would be a miracle. A miracle. And that goes the same for the Jets. That goes the same. Maddie in Delaware chimes in on Facebook. Q, what's the win total for the aforementioned teams you just mentioned? I'll give you it right now. At current, this is current. The Eagles sit at 11. Washington at 10.2, 10.5. Detroit at 10. San Francisco, 9.9. Okay. So right now, you're talking about making the playoffs minus 190, winning division plus 155. Winning the conference plus 800. That's a 4th place finish. That's a 4th place finish for the 49ers last year. A banged up team. The Rams, 9.7. I'm going under. Tampa Bay, 9.7. Green Bay, 9. You see where we're going here? I mean, listen, I mentioned, is Chicago going to sneak up on anyone? The odds makers think Chicago is poised to have a very successful season by their standards. 8.5? You're going to play the over? If they start 3-3, 4-3, that's fortunate because their 4 toughest non-divisional opponents are spread out. Washington week 6 on a Monday night game, Baltimore in week 8, Philadelphia week 13, which is Black Friday, San Francisco week 17, Sunday Night Football. Minnesota 8.5. Seattle 8.5. If you looked at their schedule, Seattle's probably going to start the season 4-3, 5-2. And then they get into their bye. So if you're a 49ers fan, you're watching Seattle a lot, are you not? I mean, listen, we've seen this. We've seen how this plays out in these divisions. You and I both know how this plays out. The NFC West is a tough division. San Fran's going to be better and healthy. Arizona, I think, is going to surprise people. Seattle figures out a way to get 9 or 10 wins, and the Rams figure out a way to get 9 or 10 wins. So if you're a 49ers fan, you're going to monitor this, and you're listening to what I'm saying right now. Arizona, their win total is 8.5. And I think Kyler Murray is a sneaky play for MVP this year. Sneaky play. So Arizona opens against New Orleans and then it's Carolina. They've got the best odds of starting 2-0. 2-0. Atlanta 7.9, Dallas 7.2, Carolina 7.1. The Giants 5.5. It's not happening. It's not. You're going to try to win at Washington in week 1. Then you're going to try to come back and you're going to try to defeat Kansas City on Sunday Night Football in week 3. Not happening. And the question is, okay, then when do you see Jackson Dart? I mean, it's a punishing overall midway through back-to-back road games, Denver and Philadelphia. And then San Fran and Green Bay at home. Oh, you got to go to Chicago too. Come on. That's brutal. Brutal, brutal, brutal. It's brutal. I see a boatload of comments. I'll get to them. Jovan chimes in. Meanwhile, the 49ers have an easy schedule to start the year. Joey BQ, 4.5 for the Giants. Vince chimes in. As a former Steelers fan, they might go 0-5, 0-6. I think it has little to do with the fact that there aren't many bad teams. Step up-ish, your Giants. FYI, I'm formerly a Jags fan right now. Wait, former? Yeah, that doesn't make sense. I mean, you can't jump like that, Vince. You can't. Can't root for a team holding out for a quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. Look, I'm telling you right now, I'm looking at, I got it right in front of me, guys. I'm looking at the schedules, and don't be shocked. I can right now on May 16th, I'm going to proclaim it right now on Middays with Q. I'm proclaiming it with my fresh roasted coffee. At this moment, do not be shocked. Do not be shocked if a team like Carolina is sitting there week 16, 17 with an opportunity to make the playoffs in that division. Saints are going to be bad. Atlanta's in flux. Tampa might win a division because there's Tampa. But if you're Carolina, you won 5 games. You got a young quarterback. You're building. Everyone's talking about the talent. Look at their win total. What is the gambling public telling you? 7 wins. Can they squeeze out 9? Can they? They're looking to build off a strong finish. So that bumps out maybe one of your teams come playoff time. Detroit might take a step back. Minnesota is going to go with the rook, or the second-year starter, I should say. Green Bay's Green Bay, and then you have the Bears. It is my point with going over the schedule and the strength of schedule with you guys and the win totals, because we all get enamored. We all get absolutely enamored with it, right? And I'm not jumping on a bandwagon right now. I'm not doing that. I'm not jumping on the bandwagon. What I'm saying is these teams, especially with these young quarterbacks in the NFL, we always talk about progressions. We always talk about the year 1 to year 2 jump. That's what everyone looks at. The Bryce Youngs, the Murrays, the Lawrence, the Hurts. Now we're looking at Caleb Williams. We saw with CJ Stroud. We're looking for that jump. And typically in that jump, what happens? You're going to sink or swim. If you swim, then these teams turn around and they win 3, 4, 5 more games. The NFC, it is the Eagles' conference to win 100%. Detroit is still Detroit. Tampa Bay by default is still Tampa Bay in a bad division. But if the 49ers are healthy and Arizona is consistently, Murray's putting up the numbers and playing like he could play, it's going to make for a hell of a division. I'm telling you right now, you might want to look at Kyler Murray MVP odds. I think he's poised for a monster season. I gave you Herbert last year, and I thought he was going to blow up. And obviously, he put up gaudy numbers, but I was looking at these type of, 5,000-yard seasons. It's so easy to say Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow. But how about, Jaden Daniels? How about Kyler Murray. Hell, I would even venture to guess if you're looking at, think about this for a minute. Jalen Hurts right now plus 2,000. You're talking about a Super Bowl MVP performance, a dual threat quarterback, and they're going to be very good. They are. They're going to win that division. Now, do they win that division and they're 10-1, 10-2, 10-3, 11-2, and they coast a couple weeks late in the season? And Arizona needs Kyler Murray to ball out and have some big games? Perhaps. That's the fun of it. But I'm going through as we keep going down to the direct Giants at 5, Saints at 5. They're not winning more than 5.5 games. You got no quarterback. Whatsoever. Let me give you the Jets. I know Maddie and I know Sarge, Jet fans, they want to know the Jets schedule. Let me run it through you real quick. All right, here's the Jets. They open with Vince's Steelers because everyone knows Vince is a Steelers fan. He's waiting for Aaron Rodgers to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then they have the Bills. The Jets have to go on the road against Tampa, then Miami in back-to-back weeks. The Jets are starting off the season 0-4. They're starting off the season 0-4. I'm sorry. You got question marks at the quarterback position. You got a rookie head coach in Aaron Glenn. Again, you got to look at the coaching staff, how it's constructed. I said the same thing about New England when they had Mayo, and you guys killed me, and look what happened. He didn't last. Dallas, Denver, Carolina may be a win. Cincinnati not a win. Cleveland a win. New England may be a win. I think New England's going to be a little better this year. Ravens, that's a loss. Falcons, Dolphins, I'll give them a split. Jacksonville on the road, the Saints on the road, the Patriots, and then close out the season. The Jets close out the season 3 out of their last 4 on the road. And 6 out of their last 8 on the road. The Jets, that's a brutal schedule. That's a brutal schedule. Joey B here in Denver, experts looking at 12 wins. Broncos schedule sets up nicely for Broncos outside of a few weeks. Let me pull up that Denver schedule. Denver's a good team. I like that quarterback. I like Bo Nix. I liked him in college. And I think that's the perfect fit with that head coach. That coach wanted a strong arm quarterback. That's why it never really worked out. He wanted a big kid. It didn't work out. The whole Russell Wilson experiment. Here's Denver. Denver opens up against the Titans. Then they go on the road against the Colts and the Chargers. Titans, we know they're a rebuilding team with Cam Ward. Indianapolis, listen, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, how much wiggle room? I can't do anything with the Colts because I don't know about the quarterback situation. That's why I would give you guys this type of advice. I would stand pat with the Colts the first couple weeks of the season because you don't know if Anthony Richardson struggles or he gets hurt, if they're going to go to Daniel Jones. We don't know if Daniel Jones is going to beat him out for the starting spot. So I'm giving the Denver Broncos 2 wins to start the season. You know what? I'm going to give Denver a win on the road against the Chargers, but they come back home and they lose to Cincinnati. So now you're sitting at 3-1. I give them a loss on the road against the Eagles. That's 3-2. They play both New York teams. I'll give them 2 wins. That gets them to 5-2. Dallas is a win, 6-2. On the road against the Texans, I think they slip up, 6-3. The Raiders, they get a win, 7-3. At home against Kansas City, I'm going to give them a win at home to get them to 8-3. Washington on the road, they lose 8-4. They beat the Raiders. That's 9-4. I'm going to give them a loss against the Packers. That's 9-5. I'll give them a win against Jacksonville. That's 10-5. A loss on the road against Kansas City, 10-6. And then they close out the season against the Chargers. Yeah, that's a 10-11 win team. That's potentially a 10 or 11 win team. Now bear in mind, and I will pull up Bo Nix just for odds talk. Bo Nix, his numbers are Let me go here. So if you're a Broncos fan, you like them winning 10, 11 games, you almost suspect that Bo Nix will have a really nice season. I thought he played really well last year. I mean, there were growing pains, but, they kept him upright. He was only sacked 24 times. But I like the kid. He's a strong arm quarterback, and he's got 5 touchdown, 6 pick, 4,500 yards. And then he has another 400 yards. Maybe he combined 5,000 yards total offense. And then he adds 40 touchdowns, 35 throwing, 5 on the ground. There you go. Right? There you go. Joe chiming in, hot take, but I feel like strength of schedule is such an overrated metric. So many unpredictable things happen over an NFL season. What's your take on this? Listen, you're 100% correct. You're 100% correct. Also, I feel bearing a major injury to Jalen Hurts, Eagles should repeat. Their schedule's hard, but I also mentioned they're built. It pains me to say this. They're built to repeat. They're built to repeat. But going back to your point, and I wanted to just touch on Joey because he's a Denver fan. Yeah, if they win their 10-11 and say they knock off Kansas City and win the division, right? Then if Bo Nix has a monster season, yeah, take a flyer on him for MVP. And to the other Joe's point, yeah, there are so many extraneous variables when you're talking about the NFL schedule. That's why it is a very dicey game. I always say this in tongue in cheek. It's a very dicey game to play, the wins and losses, right? When we start taking out the pen and the marker and we're checking everything off with the wins and the losses, because anything could happen. Quarterback can go down, right? Wide receiver can pull a hammy. You're talking about maybe teams are tanking. Well, sorry, not tanking, but teams are not playing particularly well late. You're talking about playoffs already wrapped up. So there's an issue with, your win total right there. That's always a tough proposition. Eagles have a tough schedule for a team that is a couple months removed from being a Super Bowl champ, but they also have the pieces in place. They're really good. They're really good. And I think we've gone, listen, everyone, the sentiment is when you're doing the MVP, if you're talking about potential MVP in the NFL, we always lean to what position? We always lean to the quarterback position, right? The Allens, the Mahomes, the Burrows, the Jackson. If Cincinnati had a defense last year, Joe Burrow is clearly the best quarterback in the NFL. Clearly the best quarterback in the NFL. If that team had any defense that wasn't giving up 35 points a week, because that's what they were doing. How do you not give the MVP to Burrow? He threw for 5,000 yards, 43 touchdowns, and 9 picks, and he single-handedly willed them. He willed them to the finish line. I mean, if you go back and you look at his last couple games, 369, 309, 366, he threw for 412 yards against Denver. They went on this great run. But again, what are we looking at? Can you get your team over the hump? Can you get into the playoffs? And that team played no defense. Burrow is an interesting candidate for MVP. Joe Burrow, yes. Josh Allen, it was his time. Lamar Jackson has had his time. Patrick Mahomes has shown it's his time, right? He's won those awards before. A guy like Nix, Jalen Hurts, you could have made the case when they were 10-1 and then they lost 6 straight and lost to the Bucs in the wild card game. Jalen Hurts was the best quarterback in the NFL. But a player like Bo Nix, he's a long shot. And what I'm looking at is he had a really strong rookie campaign. So you got a foundation to build upon. And I think Denver could be a sleeper. Denver could be a sleeper. Carolina, am I going to back them? Like I said in the beginning of the show, when we started to look at this, right? I look at this. Carolina has a young quarterback. And I think we were all writing off Bryce Young. I think everyone, including myself, we were writing him off. We didn't like his play. They bring in a different head coach, different defensive alignment and philosophy. And you can tell Carolina might be that sneaky team. Like, for instance, just bear with me for a second. I'll get back to your comments. Let's just say Carolina goes on the road and they beat Jacksonville. That's a statement win, even though Jacksonville's had their issues. Let's say they follow that up and they go on the road and they beat Arizona. And then they come back home 2-0 and they beat the Falcons. Now you're sitting at 3-0 and everyone's saying Carolina's the talk of the season, right? What's that surprise team? Carolina. They just need to keep the quarterback upright. They need the quarterback. They need Bryce Young to stay upright. And I know he's only sacked 29 times, but he only played in 14 games and he struggled. And then he dealt with the benching. And then again, they were getting ready to run him out of town. So be patient with Carolina. Be patient with Carolina. Chargers and Herbert chances MVP. I loved Herbert last year. He was my MVP pick going into the season. I mentioned that with our NFL insider, Lloyd Vance. I'm a big Justin Herbert fan. I thought, the move for Harbaugh, that gave them plus 2 to 3 wins, I think, alone. But, what are you judged by? Right? I mean, it's great to get through the regular season. And the Chargers, this is what I thought was, and I think you guys can appreciate this. We always say, beware that team. Right? You don't want to play them. So the Chargers were 9-6 last year. And I believe they played Kansas City really well. They only lost by 2 or 3. I believe that game was on the road. Then they got destroyed by Tampa. I think Tampa put up 40, 45 points. So everyone was talking about 8-6. This is why you bring in a guy like Harbaugh. He's got to figure out a way to get you 3 wins, get to 11, and you'll make the playoffs. And Herbert carried them. He had the big win against Denver. He had the big win on the road against New England. That game wasn't even competitive. I think he threw for 300 against Denver, close to 300 against New England. And then he had, his moment late in the season against the Raiders, and he threw for 350. Might have been 346. And they put up 34 points. And again, here you go. You go right into the postseason. The problem is all the good that Herbert did, the last 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season, it came crashing down against the Texans. I mean, I was, and I loved the Chargers in that spot. I said, okay, here you go. Throw a couple shekels, wild card game, Chargers. They're a hot team. Herbert, they got some offensive playmakers, McConkey, Dobbins, Edwards. Here we go. And that game was horrible. He threw some of the worst picks I've ever seen. That game was over. They led that game 6-0. And I don't care what anyone says. At the half at 10-6, you just knew. You knew the Texans were going to blow him out the way he was playing. I mean, he could do nothing right. 4 times he was picked. 4 times in a playoff game. One of them was returned for a touchdown. CJ Stroud didn't have to do anything. So that's kind of, I don't like to say it, but that's my lasting image of Herbert. Like I believe he's a very good quarterback, but I also believe you have to wipe that taste out of your mouth, that bad taste out of your mouth if you're a Chargers fan. The Chargers are a good team. The AFC West is the best. It's the best division of football. Hands down. It's not the AFC North because Cleveland and Pittsburgh are going to stink. And it's not the AFC East because the Jets and New England are still bad. Miami is so inconsistent, and Buffalo's the team to beat. It's not the AFC South. The AFC West is the best division in football, just hands down. Don't give me the NFC North with the 3 teams and I don't want to hear it. The NFC South, no, the NFC West. It's the AFC West. If you get out of that division, I mean, Denver won 10 games. The Chargers won 11 games. Kansas City went 15-2. You got to play these guys twice. You got to play them twice in that division. Hands down, the best division of football. And you can also make a case, it's got 3 of the top, at least 2 of the top 10. Bo Nix, maybe number 15 on the outside if you're talking about quarterbacking play. I mean, go through these divisions right now. You have, obviously, in the AFC East, May's a young quarterback. I'm not going to hang my hat on Tua anymore because he's always injured. And the Jets have their own issues. Then you got the reigning MVP and Josh Allen. Like, this is it, by the way. If you're a Bills fan, Bills Mafia, and I know a couple of Bills fans, this is it. This is it. No, I can't say the NFC East. I can't. The NFC East, you got two teams. You got Washington and the Eagles. Dallas stinks and my Giants stink. But if you're a Bills fan, this is your moment. You have to. You have to get to a Super Bowl. Because I believe if they don't get to a Super Bowl this season, that window has shut. That window has shut. And that tells me what? That tells me they're never going to get there with who? Sean McDermott. They're never going to get there. And the funny thing is, and I hate doing this, I hate doing this in May, but just take a look at some of the odds. There's varying perspectives, right? And McDermott, I think, has 10-1 odds for being the first head coach fired during the season. I mean, I thought they should have fired him a couple seasons ago. Obviously with the debacle against Kansas City, but I feel he goes into the season every year on the hot seat. But getting back to my point, so you got really 1-2 quarterbacks in that division. AFC North, Lamar Jackson, Burrow. AFC South, Tennessee's got a rookie quarterback. People are still not sold on Trevor Lawrence. Now, I'm a Lawrence fan, and I think, again, you just need to get rid of Doug Peterson. But Lawrence is also very inconsistent and injury-prone, too. Indianapolis, I think it's going to be a very long season for Indianapolis. I do. I can see Richardson struggling or getting hurt early, and they go to Daniel Jones and just it becoming an absolute disaster. And then you have Stroud. And then I mentioned the AFC West. We already talked about the NFC East. NFC North, Goff, Love. Williams is a young quarterback. Minnesota's banking on McCarthy being fully healthy because there's no more Darnold. So to me, the AFC West is a juggernaut. If San Francisco is healthy, you can make a case that the NFC West would rival that because Seattle's good. The Rams are good. If you were to say, give me your two surprise teams right now, right, just on the surface, bet your mortgage on under for the Eagles total win totals. That's the madman. And Joe replies, madman is on drugs. We don't drug test during the show. Don't ignore my land of the free comment, Q. I can root for whoever I damn well please. But hold on a second. Two things. We screen our commenters. They go through a rigorous. There's D&D free. I don't know if you guys are smoking and joking. I don't know. Let me just get that on the record. That's number one. Number two, Vince, let me address you. Here's why Vince is swole. I'm going to tell you exactly why Vince is annoyed. Because Vince wanted to cram Shedeur Sanders down my friggin' throat all last year. He knows it, and the listeners know that as well. And he's a Steelers fan. So think about how just absolutely salty and bitter Vince was when the Pittsburgh Steelers passed on Sanders how many times? And the Pittsburgh Steelers right now are sitting here like this. How many times did they pass on Sanders, Vince? How many? What was it, 26 times? And now you're waiting for Aaron Rodgers? You're waiting for Aaron Rodgers? I mean, come on. Stop. And I don't think the Eagles are taking a step back. I don't. Now, on the record, I did say that Washington was going to win the division last year and make the playoffs, and they did. I think Washington's going to be very good. But see, the scary thing is sometimes you arrive too soon, and then you take a step back. So to Man's comment about the Eagles and the win total, you might want to look at Washington's win total. You might want to look at Washington's win total. Like, we want to buy into these teams very early. We get all giddy. There's a little, flirtation, the back and forth. Like, I think Arizona is going to surprise. I think Arizona is going to put up a lot of points, and they addressed their defense. They got a tackle. They got a cornerback. They got an edge rusher. It all comes down to Murray. And I think this kid is poised to put up some monster numbers. Now, he's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay healthy. And at times, the decision-making drives me crazy. But I'm a Kyler Murray fan. And I think this kid's going to make some plays. And I think this is the not the breakout year, but I think this is a year where you sit there and say, okay, this kid's a top 10 quarterback. And if that's the case, then he is literally going to be in the MVP conversation. We got bets going on in here. Hold on a second. What do we got here? Enough to hold on a second. I've made many correct predictions, Joe. Unfortunately for Q, nailed last year's World Series with the Dodgers in 5. That's only because the Yankees imploded. We don't need to. That was the Cole game. Enough to make me a former Steelers fan. That's how many. I was talking about how many times they. Imagine that. Imagine cramming a quarterback down my throat to rile me up every day I'm on the air. Every day I'm on the air to just cram. And then for your team to pay on him. Unbelievable. Bet everything you own. Joe says, bet everything you own. What is that on the win total on the Eagles? I'll be feeding you soup at the shelter come next February. Man accepted. There you go. Maybe I don't know if they come back down to earth. I honestly don't know if the Eagles come back down to earth. I think it's very easy to say they come back down to earth because they lost some players and they had some holes to fill, but they still have, a very good tight end. They still have 2 very good wide receivers. They have an all-world running back. Trust me, we all know, in Saquon Barkley. And they have Jalen Hurts, who outperformed Patrick Mahomes twice. And I bet you there's some crazy Eagles player props too for this season. I think it's a lot of times when you win a championship, you win a Super Bowl, the hardest thing to do is what? It's to get back, right? And I think, if the Eagles have shown you anything, they are a resiliently tough team. Now, I can't stand the head coach. I think he's a freaking clown, but he's a Super Bowl winning head coach. I mean, say what you want. That quarterback is a Super Bowl winning MVP quarterback. Say whatever you want. Their offensive line is still their offensive line, right? So I don't know how you're going to beat up the Dallas Cowboys. You're going to beat up the Giants. Washington, you might split. I mean, look, let's go over right now. The Eagles open, and I know this is a dicey game, Eagles fans, so just relax. It's a dangerous game we are playing right now. Eagles open against the Cowboys. They're going to friggin' throttle the Cowboys. I don't like the fact that they have to go on the road week 2, Kansas City. I mean, could you give me Sunday Night Football for that game? Can you give me it later in the season? But you get the Super Bowl rematch out of the way. Then they play the Rams. You get another playoff rematch out of the way. Let's say they get through those 3 teams. Or even if they stub their toe on the road against Kansas City, 2-1. They go on the road, they're going to beat Tampa. They're going to beat Denver. They're going to beat the Giants. They're going to beat the Vikings. They're going to beat the Giants again. So let me do my liberal arts math. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're 7-1 in Q's world right now. 7-1 by virtue of the schedule that we're going over. I see the comments. Calm down. 7-1. Now they've got the Lions, the Cowboys, the Bears, and the Chargers. Even if they trip up against Detroit at home, they're still going to beat Dallas. They're 3-4. They're 3-1 right now. Now you're a 10-2 team. They're going to beat the Chargers, the Raiders, the Commanders. The Bills is going to be a tough game. Late December in Buffalo. Maybe the Bills need that game for seeding, and the Eagles need that game for seeding. I don't like that they play Washington 2 out of the last 3 weeks of the season. But the reason they're doing that is they believe that Washington is going to give them a run for their money and the division is going to be up for grabs. Philadelphia Eagles should win 12 games. They should win 12 games. If you go by that and the talent that they have now, as you guys have mentioned, anything could happen. Hurts can go down. Saquon could go down. God forbid, Brown. You never wish that. You never want that. But yeah, that's the longer the season goes, of course. Joey BQ, Belichick to the Giants, 2027. Fails in Chapel Hill. Daboll will be gone. Will the stars line for Belichick to finally come to the Giants? Pipe down, I know. It's not. So two things, Joey. Two things on that. I've said this, and I said this last week on Middays. I believe that Belichick might not even coach one game with UNC. And I know all this report from Pablo Torre, and it's almost kind of getting weird, the reporting that they're doing. But there's the date, and you guys can look it up if you want. But I think the key date is June 1st. I think that is the key date because that's a buyout. So, question, right? How much will UNC owe Bill Belichick if they want to buy him out? Now, if you've been following this story between him and his 24-year-old, girlfriend that he met on an airplane, if you believe that, I got swampland in Florida I want to sell you. So his buyout right now, and this is where it gets interesting. If Bill Belichick steps away, or if UNC decides this is not working, via con Dios, we're going to buy you out. It's a $10 million buyout if he leaves before June 1st. After that, it's just $1 million. So think about that. So I've stated my case with this. I've said it. I've gone on record. I don't believe Bill Belichick will coach for UNC this season. And you guys can crush me when I'm wrong. I don't care. I thought UNC, their best course of action was to cut ties with Belichick. That's why those dates are huge. That's why those dates are huge. I said it last week on the show. I don't think Belichick coaches one game for UNC. I didn't like the move from the start. I didn't like the hire. We knew what this was about. You're not going to cast aside Bill Belichick. You're not. You're not going to cast aside Belichick in the NFL annals. You're not. So take that year off. But he decided, hey, let's get some buzz. Chapel Hill, UNC. I don't see it. And to your point, yeah, Bill Belichick, everyone knows Bill Belichick's dream job is to come back and coach the Giants. Everyone knows that. And you've got a lame duck GM and you have a lame duck head coach, right? And Joe Shane and Brian Daboll. That's all. You got a dead man walking. What do you guys? I got guys arguing on the chat. What are we going here? We're going Godfather, all business, nothing personal. Guys, it's only May. What are you going to do when September rolls around? Be jumping on each other in the comments section. I mean, come on. It's only May. The weather's nice. Go to the beach, do a little fishing. You know when the Giants are 1-7, you know where I'm going to be. You guys already know. Jumping on each other already. My goodness. Why? Because we turned around and we talked about the win total. That's why I always say this. The win total, when we start to talk about scheduling, even Kyle, my producer, knows. You're getting this you're just getting in this dicey proposition. Dicey proposition. And you know what? You guys better stop as well. You know exactly what you're doing right now. You know exactly what you're doing. Again, there you go. I got to figure out a way. Again, I have to. Oh my God, the comments. Wow. The madman just got. This is the first on the air, by the way. The madman just got called out. Never been done. In all the years, the madman has just basically commented. He's called in. He's chimed in. He's never, ever been called out. And right there, he is called Captain Blank Blank by Joe. Unbelievable. This is why I didn't even want to start with the schedule. Vince, I talked in hour number one. Yeah. Would it be the most New York thing ever? Yeah. I said the worst case scenario. I mentioned this yesterday on Middays. The worst case scenario for the Knicks is to have this series go back to New York. I mean, that was bad last night by Tibbs. That was bad. Kevin on X chimes in. I agree 100%. You mentioned Tibbs over on your other show. I would look at Tibbs. I would look at him as a head coach that maybe is not the right guy for the job. We can talk about that again after the series, but it would be very bad. It would be a debacle. But this is the NBA, man. Teams come back, and I'm not making excuses for the Knicks. I mean, hell, Boston doesn't have Jason Tatum. But you had White, you had Brown step up, you had the role players. I thought that kid Cornette sounded like Tupperware, right? Tupperware, whatever the hell his name is, Cornette. You had the other kid making all those Pritchard threes and the blocks. He should have pulled Cat in the third, and he didn't. He should have went to Mitchell Robinson. And then Brunson got in foul trouble. There's really nothing more you can do about that. Maddie in Delaware chimes in. Q, enough of the NBA talk. Get back to the NFL schedule. And you're right. My Jets and your Giants are going to be woeful. How many games do you honestly think the Jets are going to win? Maddie, I kind of told you, bro. It's not looking good for either New York team. It's not. These are tough schedules, man. And by the way, they're just void of talent. They're just void of talent. Now, is it, the conspiracy now or the theory out there is that the NFL knows Aaron Rodgers is going to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's why they have the Steelers and the Jets playing in week one. Nobody knows what the hell Rodgers is going to do. He's going to go back in his cave and find himself. What's the word I can't pronounce? Huanaska, whatever it was. What is the stuff that he was, I don't know, Madman or Vince will bring it up or Joey will bring it up. I butchered that word so many times I can't even remember. Hyanaska, who knows? No, Rodgers is going to go and find himself. That's what he's going to do. And when he's ready to come out of that hole, he's going to come out of his hole. If I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't even worry about that right now. I don't. So they open against Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Tampa Bay, the Dolphins, and the Cowboys. That's a brutal stretch. That's an absolutely brutal stretch, period, for the New York Jets. That's why I like some of these unders with some of these teams. I really do. I like some of these unders. What do we got here? Marcus in Wilmington is a diehard Eagles fan on XQ. I know you're about to give some love to my Eagles. They should easily win 12 to 13 games. Book them in. NFC East champs are getting back to the Super Bowl. All right. There you go. Vince chimes in. Rodgers is higher than I am right now. Nobody should have him to play quarterback. Well, I don't know. How high are you, Vince? You can smoke and joke while you watch a show. I don't mind that. We going win any munchies right now? I mean, it's 5:00. Is it dinner time? Is it munchie time? How does that work? Like, walk me through that. I am curious. Like, if you are technically smoking and joking, you're watching Middays with Q, which I appreciate, and you're smoking and joking, is it dinner time? You do a little drive-through. I would imagine, right? That's kind of copacetic. That's the hip thing to do, right? That's the edgy thing to do. Little fries, some chips, little burger, to wash down that burger. There you go. There you go. Ice. I'm being told ice cream. There you go as well. So, oh my goodness, you guys are too much. Smoke after work and now making dinner for the fam. There you go. All right. So that's good. By the way, I saw a funny movie last night. Speaking of which, making dinner for the fan, because you guys know I'm a movie buff. You guys see the movie Nobody yet? The second one's coming out, but I watched the first one last night. Nobody. It was pretty good. It was the guy that played Better Call Saul. Great actor. I thought it was good. It's kind of one of those John Wickish type of movies. But all right, let me get in a couple more comments before we close it out on a Thursday. Madman went and hide. I think Joe just basically took him behind the woodshed. Who knows where he is? We don't know if he's ever going to return to the show. Don't forget, it is a Thursday edition of Middays with Q inside the Trax 57 studios. We are fast approaching the 5:00 hour. Tomorrow, we will be live again on the YouTube channel. So we hope you guys tune in for that. We'll probably be live around 3 or 4 again, but we'll talk a lot more NFL, some NBA. I'll mix in some baseball plays. What do we got here? E in a lot of Delaware guys chiming in. E in Newark. Q. Used to listen to you on 1290 The Ticket. Good to see you on your YouTube channel as well. Hope all is well. You know, I'm a hardcore Dallas Cowboys fan. I'm not going to tell you the Cowboys are going to win the division, but I think they're poised to make the playoffs. What say you? E, good to hear from you. And I do remember you're a big time Dallas Cowboys fan, like my guy Omar Bashir, who I used to work with at 1290 The Ticket many moons ago. Dallas is going to stink. Dallas is going to be really bad. I mean, they're an older team. Don't get enamored with the quote one move that they made. The Dallas Cowboys are not a good football team. They're just not. The Dallas Cowboys think they win championships in, July and August. They don't. Is Pickens going to make a difference? Does he take a little pressure off CeeDee Lamb? Sure. But I mean, think about this. They're an aging team. That line is getting older. Prescott is getting older. He's been banged up. Look, the knock on Prescott is great quarterback when he's healthy, but he's been injury prone the last couple. I think 22 played a full season 2023. Obviously dealt with the big injuries last games. The offensive line has done a terrible job at times keeping him uptight, upright for a clean pocket. He's an older quarterback. He's an older quarterback. He's going to be 32, 33. Dallas is not going to be able to compete with the Philadelphia Eagles. They're not going to be able to compete with the Washington Commanders. They're not. They're just not. I mean, you got to be realistic. There are certain teams. I mean, you're basically you're punching out of your weight class. And there are teams that can do that, and there are teams that can't. Dallas can't do that. The Giants can't do it. The Jets can't do it. New England can't do it. Kansas City can. Buffalo can. Cincinnati, with a better defense, can. Philadelphia Eagles certainly can. I think the Rams are a tough team. They showed that. They pretty much gave the Eagles their most competitive playoff game, right? Because Washington rolled over early on in that NFC Championship game. As soon as Saquon went off tackle and scored, the game was over. And Kansas City didn't even show up in the Super Bowl. So we're talking about mentally tough. Dallas Cowboys are not a mentally tough team. They're not. They're soft. And every year they show that. They're soft. They roll over like a bunch of dogs. The Giants are not a mentally tough team. They're not. Washington showed you some moxie. The Eagles showed you some moxie. Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, because these are Washington new to the dance. Understand what I'm saying? Buffalo, Baltimore, Eagles. Those are your teams, man. Those are your teams. Everyone else is under them. Everyone else is under them. You're going to have middle of the pack, and you're going to have some young teams that are going to make a rise up. You're going to have some young teams that are going to be trending. People are going to jump on Arizona. People are going to jump on Carolina. I don't know where people are at with Houston. I don't. Indianapolis, I would not touch. The Giants, I would not touch. The New Orleans Saints, I would not touch. I wouldn't. The Jets, stay away. Chicago, I don't know. They're going to be profitable to your pocket. I just don't know. I don't. All I'm saying is this. Again, at the end of the day, you got to see things for what they are. You got to see things for what they are. And some of these teams, they're just not ready to take that step. And some of the teams that have been up there, right, they've had that sustainability, that longevity, that level of consistency. I trust them more. I can't, there's no way I can tell you at 5:14 on a Thursday Eastern time on a Thursday edition of Middays with Q. I can't tell you that teams like the Jets, the Giants, New England, the Saints, the Falcons are ready to take a jump. They're not. They're not. Carolina is going to trend up. Maybe Jacksonville is trending up. Arizona should be trending up. But there are also teams that are trending down. The Giants, the Jets, the Dallas Cowboys, they're going down. They don't have quarterbacks. Dak is a good quarterback, but the Jets and Giants don't have quarterbacks. They don't. Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston. Hell, think about this. If I'm Cleveland, or if I'm the Saints, why not try to pull the plug, give up a 4th-round pick for Jameis? At least you have a quarterback that you're familiar with. I mean, Lloyd Vance brought that up the other day on the show. It was a great idea. Russell Wilson is an aging quarterback. Dart will see the field sooner rather than later. Fields is a project. That's all he is. The Jets took a flyer on Fields for one reason. They were looking at risk to reward. They were looking at upside. If they can, this kid's 26, okay? And he had his moments with Pittsburgh. And I just think if you go back early on in his career, Chicago ruined him. Like that offensive line, they got that kid killed. He was sacked 55 times his second season. He was sacked 45 times his third season. He was seeing ghost. He was gun shy. He didn't want to look over the defense and hang in the pocket and throw it down the field. And I don't blame him. He had a moment or two with Pittsburgh, but you still see he's still very green. You know, the decision-making at times, when to throw, when to roll out, when to hit the pocket, when to pull the ball down, when to look and check off. The Jets are saying, hey, if we can actually build this kid up, if we can take this kid and make him into a solid starter in the NFL, then we've done our job. And maybe they're milking him 3, 4, 5 years. It's a low risk to low reward. That's all it is. That's all it is. Low risk to high reward. That's all. All right, got to start wrapping it up on a Thursday. You guys have been entertaining, to say the least, and we always appreciate that. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel at Rich Q on X and on IG. Facebook alike. Don't forget also to follow us on TriX57. My man Kyle producing us, keeping us locked in and on the air. We'll be back in the saddle on a Friday edition. Yes, we are bringing back What the Frig Friday. We'll do that tomorrow live on the YouTube channel. I want to see all you guys back ready. Yeah, you can bring the gloves. You guys can fire off at each other in comment section. We enjoy it nonetheless. It's only sports talk. We don't take it too serious. Don't take it too serious. We have fun. Anyone is welcome to chime in on the show. Anyone is welcome. This is a judge-free zone. What's that, Jim? What is that, Jim? That's Planet Fitness. What is it? Judge-free. We're not judging anyone. You can come. You want to smoke and joke. You want to come in with your good takes, your weak take, your trolls, your comments. We invite you to just come in and hang out with us on Middays with Q. Have a good sports Thursday. NBA talk tomorrow. NFL talk. We'll post this out. We'll also fire it off on X. Give me a follow at Rich Q on Q. We're looking to go live at 3 and/or 4 tomorrow for What the Frig Friday edition of Middays with Q. Until then, enjoy the baseball tonight. Enjoy the basketball as well. We will talk to you tomorrow. Be safe, be sound. Hasta luego, buen día.